Let me ask you something. Have you ever caught yourself thinking a thought so cruel, so judgmental, that you flinched? Maybe it was a voice whispering, "You're so behind," or "You'll never be like them." A thought that seemed to come from within, but didn't quite feel like you. That voice, where did it come from? You weren't born with it. You didn't choose it. You simply absorbed it. Alain de Botton once said, "We are porous people. The way we were spoken to becomes the way we speak to ourselves." Let that settle. Because here's the truth most of us miss. The voice in your head was taught to you. It was built slowly, word by word, tone by tone, through your parents' fears, your teachers' standards, your culture's norms, your society's expectations. You absorbed it while eating dinner. You internalized it while waiting to be picked for the team. You memorized it without ever knowing you were studying. Just like language, we don't realize we're learning emotional syntax until we're already fluent in self-doubt. That's why you can be sitting in a cafe, sipping your favorite coffee, and out of nowhere a thought interrupts you. You should be working. You're wasting time. And you accept it as truth, without even asking where it came from. But what if you paused? What if you asked, whose voice is this? Because sometimes, it's not your true voice, it's the echo of an impatient parent, a harsh coach, an old wound. Self-awareness begins when you stop assuming every thought is yours. And here's something vulnerable. When I was 14, I overheard a teacher say I was smart but lazy. For years, I heard that phrase every time I hesitated, not in her voice, but in mine. Every pause became proof. Every delay became guilt. It wasn't until my mid-20s that I asked, what if that judgment was hers, not mine? What if I'm not lazy, but careful? So I'll ask you, what voice has been living rent-free in your mind? Whose standards are you measuring your life against? What names do you call yourself in silence? And if they're not truly yours, do you have to keep carrying them? You see, reclaiming your mind doesn't begin with changing your habits. It begins with recognizing the inheritance you never consented to, and deciding piece by piece which voices you want to keep and which you're ready to let go. Let me paint a scene for you. You sit down to work. You promise yourself just 5 minutes on your phone. Just 5. You scroll through a few reel zones, funny, one's dramatic, one's oddly satisfying. You look up. 40 minutes are gone. And your mind? Scattered, frantic, foggy. You don't even remember what you watched. But your brain remembers how it felt. That rush, that hit of dopamine. And now, it wants more. Welcome to the brain rot cycle. Here's the terrifying part. You didn't just fall into it. You were designed into it. The algorithm doesn't care what's meaningful. It only cares what's clickable. It doesn't care what expands you, only what keeps you. Every time you watch a 7-second clip, your brain rewards that decision with a rush. The algorithm takes note. Aha! They like this. And so it feeds you more. Faster. Louder. Dumber. Again and again. Before you know it, you're not watching content, you're being watched by content. You're not choosing, you're reacting. You're not alive, you're scrolling. And the scariest part? You start to think that this is normal. But here's a quiet rebellion. You can train the algorithm. Yes, you. Every time you skip a low-effort clip, you teach it not to show you more. Every time you watch something nourishing like a podcast, a documentary, a long-form story like this one, you're sending a signal, I want more substance. You see, the algorithm is not your enemy. Your passivity is. This is why I call for an algorithm detox. Not as a productivity hack, not even as a digital cleanse, but as a declaration of cognitive sovereignty. You are not just a consumer. You are a curator. You choose what enters your eyes, your ears, your mind. And what enters becomes you. Let me ask you, what would happen if, for just 1 week, you curated your digital diet with the same intention as your food? Would you feed your mind junk, or would you nourish it with truth, beauty, depth. And if you don't know where to start, let me share a simple practice. Whenever you see content that feels cheap, press not interested. When you find something valuable, watch it to the end. Engage. Comment. Give your brain longer forms, full interviews, rich podcasts, even silence. Especially silence. Now, I know silence feels uncomfortable, but that discomfort is not emptiness. It is detox. It is space for your own voice to return. Remember this: attention is the currency of your soul. And every time you give it away mindlessly, you are going into spiritual debt. You can change. Not in a single day. But today can be the first time you look at your phone, your feed, your scrolling habits, and say, I see what you're doing, and I'm not playing this game anymore. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. How many times have you told yourself, I'll just check one thing. I'll focus after this. I need a break. Just 5 minutes. And how many times have those little lies turned into hours lost? You're not alone, but you're also not broken. You're trained. Let me say that again. Not broken, but trained. And that's good news, because anything trained can be untrained. We like to think of ourselves as independent thinkers, but the truth is, most of what we do, feel, and believe is scripted. You didn't decide how to feel about rejection. You didn't consciously choose how to respond to silence. You were taught, conditioned, programmed. From early on, you learned that silence meant danger, that stillness was laziness, that being bored was something to escape, not embrace. That's why, when you try to sit still now, your leg bounces, your fingers itch, your hand reaches for your phone without you even knowing it. But here's the truth. These patterns are not destiny. They're just rehearsed reflexes. And just like you learn to flinch at discomfort, you can learn to stay. Stay with the feeling. Stay with the pause. Stay with the moment. Let me tell you a short story. There was a young man named Sam. Bright, curious, full of ideas. But Sam had one problem: he couldn't finish anything. Not a book, not a task, not a conversation. Every time he tried, he'd end up scrolling. One day, he started writing his college essay. Within 5 minutes, he opened another tab, then another, then TikTok, then hours passed. By the time he returned, the page was blank, and so was his spirit. He started to believe he was lazy, disorganized, broken, but he wasn't. He was simply trained to escape friction. So we started small. I told Sam, next time your finger reaches for your phone, pause. Just pause. Don't fight it. Don't judge it. Just notice it. That pause became a moment of freedom. 1 moment became 5. 5 became 10. 10 became momentum. And from that pause, Sam began to reclaim the pen. Not just for his essay, but for his life. So let me ask you, what are you escaping from? What part of your life have you mistaken for just who you are, when in fact, it's just who you've rehearsed being? There is no shame in being trained. The shame is in believing you can't be retrained. Awareness is the first undoing. Intention is the second. Practice is the third. And repetition? That's how you reclaim the script. Boredom. It sounds like such a dull word, doesn't it? We treat it like a disease. We run from it like it's fire. Every idle moment, check the phone. 2 minutes waiting for a train? Scroll. 5 seconds between sentences? Tap the screen. We have become so allergic to stillness that we've forgotten what lives inside it. But let me propose something radical. Boredom isn't the enemy. It's the doorway. A doorway to creativity. A doorway to clarity. A doorway to self. When you stop filling every second with noise, what you're left with is truth. And yes, that truth can be uncomfortable, even painful. Because in the silence, you meet the parts of you that you've been avoiding. The insecurity, the loneliness, the unmet dreams. But those are also the parts of you that are asking for your attention. They are not distractions from your life. They are your life. Let me share something personal. There was a summer where I had no internet, no social media, no noise. At first, it was unbearable. I paced. I fidgeted. I felt like my skin was crawling. But after a few days, something shifted. I started to hear my own thoughts clearly. I remembered dreams I had buried. I felt grief I had postponed. And in the boredom, I felt human again. Because boredom, when embraced, becomes presence. And presence is power. Now I know, in our world, presence sounds like a luxury. But it's not. It's survival. If you never feel the present, you will always be haunted by the past and chased by the future. So here's a challenge. The next time you're in an elevator, or waiting for a friend, or lying in bed before sleep, don't reach for your phone. Instead, breathe, stretch, look around. Notice the sound of the fan, the texture of the pillow, the rhythm of your breath. Because these tiny moments, these are not filler. They're the thread of your life. Don't scroll past them. Live them. Because if you don't slow down now, one day you'll look back and realize you didn't live a life. You watched one. Let me take you back to a quiet night. No lights, no voices, just the sound of your own breathing. And in that silence, a voice whispers inside your mind. It says, "You're behind. You're not enough. Everyone else is moving forward and you're still stuck." Now stop. Pause with me for a moment. Where did that voice come from? Was it yours? Or was it something you absorbed maybe years ago from someone who was hurting, someone who didn't see you fully? Maybe it was a parent who never learned to speak gently to themselves, so they couldn't speak gently to you. Maybe it was a teacher who judged by results, not effort. Maybe it was you after too many disappointments, turning criticism inward as a shield. Here's what I need you to know. The voice inside your head becomes the story you live. And most of us are living in stories that were written by pain. But here's the gift life offers you if we're brave enough to receive it. You can edit the script. You can start to speak to yourself like someone who loves you. You can change "I'm such a failure" into "I failed today, but I'm still learning." You can change "I never get it right" into "I'm figuring it out." You can change "I hate how I look" into "I'm learning to care for myself." Now I know this sounds simple, too simple, but let me ask you this. If someone followed you around all day, repeating what you say to yourself in private, would you call that person a friend or a bully? Would you let someone speak to your child the way you speak to yourself? Then why do we allow it in our own minds? Let me tell you a story. There was a woman named Lena. She was a brilliant writer, but she never published anything. Every time she sat down to write, a voice in her head whispered, "You're not good enough. You're not ready." That voice had been there since she was 12. One day, her therapist asked her to write down every cruel thing she told herself. She filled 5 pages. Then, the therapist said, "Now read these words as if they came from your child." Lena couldn't even read half a page. She wept, because for the first time, she realized just how violent her inner voice had become and how numb she'd been to the damage. So let me ask you, when was the last time you truly listened to the way you speak to yourself? And what would change if that voice became a little softer, a little kinder? What if the voice inside your mind became your greatest supporter, your fiercest ally? Not someone who lets you off the hook, but someone who tells you, "You can do this. You've fallen before and stood again. You are not your mistakes. You are becoming." That's the voice you're allowed to have. That's the voice you're allowed to build. And every time you catch yourself speaking cruelly, you don't have to judge it. Just pause and speak again with compassion, because your inner voice isn't fixed. It's practiced. And the more you practice kindness, the more it becomes your default. Speak to yourself like someone worth saving, because you are. Let me begin this part with a confession. I love technology. I love that I can talk to someone across the world in seconds. I love that I can learn anything, anytime, anywhere. But there's a line, and most of us have crossed it, because what was once a tool has become a master, and we didn't even notice. Let me explain. Technology was built to assist our minds, but today, technology is replacing them. You forget a word, ask AI. Need directions, ask the map. Want to write an email? Click the template. Need to calculate a tip, open the app. None of this is wrong, but something's changing. The muscle of your mind, its ability to reason, recall, create, gets softer, weaker, every time you hand off a task that your brain was built to do. And that's the real danger. Not that we use tools, but that we forget how to live without them. Think of your mind like your legs. If you never walked, your muscles would waste away. If you never thought for yourself, your mind will too. Let me share a simple moment. A teenage boy once asked me, "What's the best app to write essays faster?" I looked at him and said, "The best app is your own brain. Your memories, your doubts, your stories." He laughed, but I wasn't joking. There's no tool more powerful than a mind fully alive. So here's what I challenge you to do. Next time you need to calculate something tree, doing it in your head. Next time you want to write tree using your own voice, your own rhythm. Next time you feel boredom, reach for the phone. Reach inward. That discomfort you feel, that's not emptiness. That's potential. It's your brain waking up. You see, technology is beautiful when we lead it. But when we follow it blindly, it doesn't just map our streets. It maps our thoughts. It doesn't just correct our grammar. It rewrites our beliefs. And the price? Your voice, your judgment, your attention. So, I'll leave you with this. Use the tool. Don't become it. And when in doubt, turn it off. Let your own mind take the wheel. It might not be perfect, but it's yours, and it's worth trusting. Picture this. You're sitting at dinner with your family. Your mom is sharing something important. Maybe it's about her day, or a health concern, or just a memory she wants to pass down. You nod, but your hand's on your phone. Notifications buzz beneath the table. And without even realizing it, your mind drifts. You didn't mean to, but you weren't there. You were physically present, but emotionally absent. And the tragedy, you'll never get that exact moment back. This is what overstimulation has done to us. We've lost the capacity to stay inside one moment, to simply be, to listen not with ears, but with presence. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you sat in silence without needing to fill it? No music, no scrolling, no multitasking. Just you, with your breath, with the room, with this one moment. Hard, isn't it? In 2014, a Harvard study found that we spend 47% of our waking lives not focused on what we're doing. Almost half of our life gone to mental drift. But it gets deeper. Another study at UVA asked participants to sit alone in a room for 15 minutes with no phone, no distractions, just themselves. Here's the twist. Many participants said they would rather receive a mild electric shock than be alone with their thoughts. Yes, you read that right. They preferred pain over presence. Now, if that doesn't say something about our world, I don't know what does. But here's the hopeful truth. Presence is not a lost art. It's a forgotten habit. And like any habit, it can be remembered. Here's a story. Jason, a 28-year-old in New York City, worked in finance. His days were fast. His nights were faster. Constant noise, movement, caffeine, pressure. When he finally burned out, he took a leave. No laptop, no meetings, no agenda, just time. He flew to Utah, rented a small cabin, left his phone inside for 48 hours. The first 6 hours, he panicked. He paced. He felt itchy, useless, small. But by hour 10, something shifted. He noticed the sound of the wind through the trees, the way the wood cracked as it warmed, the ache in his chest he had been ignoring for 3 years. And for the first time, in a long time, he felt alive. Present. I thought I needed productivity, he told me. But what I needed was space. You don't need to fly to Utah, but you do need to create moments of silence in your life. Not because you have time, but because you want to feel time. Here are 3 practices to rebuild presence. The 60-second rule. Once a day, stop what you're doing. Set a timer, close your eyes, and just be for 60 seconds. Phone-free meals. Even if you're alone, let your meal be a moment. Taste, chew, observe. The name ritual. Every time someone speaks to you, silently repeat their name. It forces you into the now. Presence doesn't require a retreat. It requires intention. Because the truth is, most people don't need more time. They just need to actually fill the time they already have. Let's break a myth. You are not lazy. Let me repeat that louder for the version of you that beats yourself up every night. You are not lazy. You are exhausted. You are overstimulated. You are pulled in 10 directions at once by systems that profit from your distraction. You are not failing. You are being attacked. And the battlefield is your mind. Let me introduce you to Maya, a 19-year-old college student from Chicago. Bright, talented, ambitious. But every time she tried to study, she froze. She'd scroll TikTok for 2 hours, then feel horrible, guilty, worthless. Her inner voice was brutal. I'm just lazy. But when we looked closer, she wasn't doing nothing. She was battling the pressure of comparison. Everyone else is ahead of me. The fear of not being good enough. What if I try and still fail? The algorithm's chokehold. Every scroll designed to hijack her dopamine system. She wasn't lazy. She was mentally outnumbered. And chances are you are too. Think about it. Every app on your phone is run by hundreds of engineers working to keep you hooked. You, alone in your bed at midnight, battling an army of tech designed to override your willpower. Of course, you scroll. Of course you give in. But that doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're human, and you've been fighting without armor. So let's change that. Here are 3 weapons to reclaim your strength. Name the battle. Every time you find yourself avoiding work, ask, what am I really avoiding? The task or the feeling beneath it? Tiny wins. Instead of aiming for 3 hours of deep focus, start with 5 minutes, 1 push-up, 1 paragraph. Small momentum beats 0 every time. Replace the word lazy. From now on, when you feel unmotivated, say, I'm overwhelmed. I'm overstimulated. I need grounding. Reframe the story. Let me leave you with this. If you saw a soldier coming home from war tired, shaken, you wouldn't call him lazy. You'd call him brave for surviving. So why don't you speak to yourself the same way? You've been in a mental war you never asked to fight, and yet you're still here, still trying, still listening. That's not laziness. That's strength. And one day soon, your mind will catch up with that truth. Close your eyes for a moment and try to remember, who were you before the noise? Before the voices told you to fit in? Before the algorithm learned to hijack your thoughts? Before grades, expectations, deadlines, likes, followers, and the endless race? What did your spirit sound like before it was interrupted? There's a kind of healing the world doesn't talk about. The healing of remembrance. of returning not to your past, but to your essence. Let me take you back to something you may have forgotten. You weren't born distracted. You weren't born anxious. You weren't born believing you were broken. You learned that. You absorbed that. And if it was learned, it can be unlearned. I once met a man named Eli, 53 years old, a retired surgeon. He had everything: a big house in Seattle, kids in college, a respected name. But something was hollow. One day, after a silent retreat, he told me something I'll never forget. He said, "I realized I've lived most of my life in someone else's voice." When I asked what he meant, he said, "Every decision, every goal, every sacrifice, I thought it was mine. But really, I was performing for ghosts. The ghost of his father's disapproval. The ghost of his teacher's expectations. The ghost of the American dream measured in square footage." He paused, then whispered, "I don't know who I am without them." And you know what? That was the moment his healing began. Because awareness is the first return. Maybe that's you, too. Maybe you've lived for the scoreboard, the likes, the resume, for so long that silence feels like death. But silence is birth. And in that quiet space, you begin to hear the child you once were. The one who drew on walls. The one who sang without fear. The one who danced before shame knew your name. That child still lives inside you, waiting for you to remember. So here's what I want you to do. Tonight, when everything is still, ask yourself, what have I silenced in myself just to belong? What voice in me has gone unheard for years? What part of me did I bury to be accepted? And then, listen. The mind can be trained. The habits can be rebuilt. But the soul? The soul wants only one thing: to come home. So come home. Not to a place, but to yourself. There's a blank page in front of you. Can you see it? It's not made of paper. It's not inside a notebook. It's inside your mind. And for the first time, the pen is back in your hand. Not the hand of the algorithm. Not the hand of your trauma. Not the hand of society's script. Yours. So now I ask you, what story do you want to live? Not the one written by fear. Not the one passed down by wounded generations. Not the one that says, you can only be loved if you earn it. You've spent enough years narrating from survival. It's time to write from truth. Let me remind you of something that might shake you. Your life isn't happening on autopilot. It's being authored in real time by every small choice you make. Every time you speak kindly to yourself. Every time you choose stillness over stimulation. Every time you resist the pull of distraction and return to the present. You are writing your story. Word by word. Moment by moment. Breath by breath. Let me end with this. You will forget. You will slip. You will scroll mindlessly again. You will doubt everything we've talked about. And that's okay. Because this isn't about being perfect. It's about being awake. And if you ever find yourself lost again, come back here. Re-listen to this. Not because I said anything magical, but because you did. Because inside you there's a voice that's been buried under noise for too long. A voice that says, I am not lazy. I am healing. I am not broken. I am remembering. I am not a machine. I am alive. So when the world tries to write over you, you write back with clarity, with courage, with your real name. Welcome back to your mind. Now go live like it's yours.